Have you ever felt like you're stuck in a loop, running into the same walls over and over again? It's such a common human feeling, right? But what if there was a map, a kind of GPS for the soul that could not only show you exactly where you are, but also how to break out of those circles and start climbing? Well, that's what we're going to explore. It's called the resonance model, and it's a powerful map for moving from being stuck to truly ascending.
So let's start with the big question. Why do we get stuck in these patterns in the first place? A lot of it comes down to something the model calls generational dissonance. Now, this isn't about blame or some kind of life sentence. Think of it more like an inheritance of momentum. It's the emotional and spiritual stuff passed down through our families. The great thing is, this model sees that inheritance not as a cage, but as raw material, something we have the power to refine and transform into something beautiful.
Okay, so how do we start that process of transformation? Well, at the heart of the resonance model is this universal blueprint for all progress. I mean, all of it, whether you're learning a skill, building a relationship, or creating a better version of yourself. It's called the 9 Laws of Creation, and it's basically a step-by-step guide to bringing anything good into the world. Let's break down these first 4 laws because you'll see them everywhere once you know what to look for. Imagine you're learning to cook a new dish. First, you combine the ingredients. Then you compound your skill through practice. You cook it a few times, getting better each time. Next, you compare what you've made to the recipe or a picture. That's your standard. And finally, if it's too salty, you correct it next time. Combine, compound, compare, correct. That's the engine of all growth. But here, right at the compare stage, this is where almost everyone gets stuck. It is the most critical choice in the whole process. You see, when we compare honestly and humbly, it leads to correction and we move upward. But if our comparison gets distorted by things like fear or shame or pride, we don't correct, we justify, we make excuses. And that justification is what traps us in a repeating loop, forcing us to run that same circle over and over again. So how do we get out of that loop? How do we make sure our comparisons lead to real growth instead of just more justification? Well, there's a key. There's a hinge that can swing that entire flat circle into a soaring upward spiral. And that hinge is consecration. It's the simple but profound act of dedicating our effort, our will, our actions, everything, to a purpose that's bigger than ourselves. It's about changing the why behind what we do, from being about us to being about something divine. And this says it all. The moment you consecrate your efforts, that flat circle of trying and failing becomes an upward spiral of growth. You're not just fixing a mistake anymore, you're contributing to something eternal. Consecration is the key that unlocks the rest of the C's. It gives you the strength to continue, to culminate your work, to cross to a new level, and ultimately to converge with your highest potential. Okay, but what about when we're not just in a loop, but we feel totally and completely lost? When those justifications have taken over and we honestly don't know the way back? The model has a path for that too. It's an escape route, and it's called the Laws of Ascension. This is the way back. It's a sequence that always starts with the humility to repent, to let go of our own way of doing things. That simple act opens us up to receive help and grace. Once we receive that, we can begin to resonate with truth again. And from there, the path just keeps going up. We can redeem our past, rise above old habits, return, reunite, refine, and ultimately radiate light. Now, it is so important that we understand what repent means here. This is not about shame or beating yourself up, not at all. Think of it as a daily realignment. It's a humble course correction. It's like checking your compass on a hike to make sure you're still heading toward the light. It's a positive, hopeful action. And that's why the order of those first 2 steps is so critical. Trying to just receive a feeling of peace without first realigning is like taking a painkiller for a deep wound. It's spiritual anesthesia. Sure, it might numb the pain for a little while, but it never ever heals the cause. You have to be willing to course correct first. Now, any good map doesn't just show you the right path, it also warns you about the dangerous terrain. So the model has a counter map. It's a diagnostic tool that helps us recognize when we're starting to move in the wrong direction. It always starts small, almost silently. We conceive a thought that's just a little bit off, a little detached from truth, a small seed of selfishness. Then we start to contort things. We twist reality just a little to make that thought serve our ego or our appetite. Next, we convince ourselves. This is where we build a whole story, a powerful justification that makes our distorted thinking seem completely reasonable. Once we bought into our own story, our will begins to conspire with the distortion.
We might even collude with others who tell us what we want to hear. At this point, the distortion takes command. It's not just a choice anymore. It starts to become an automatic pattern that rules our behavior. And finally, the act is completed. And every time it is, that downward loop gets carved just a little bit deeper, making it even harder to escape next time. Which brings us to this fundamental truth of the entire model. Just read it. Anything that truly binds you is not of God. The whole point of this map is freedom and growth. So if a pattern, a habit, or story is trapping you, binding you, and shrinking your world, that's your sign. That's how you know you're off the path. So we've seen the map for creation, the escape route when we're lost, and the warning signs of descent. But what powers this whole thing? What's the true north on this compass? What's at the very center of the map that makes this entire journey possible? First, let's be absolutely clear about one thing. This is not a self-help guide. This is not a map for self-salvation. You cannot do this on your own through sheer willpower. Trying to do so is like trying to lift yourself up by your own bootstraps. It's impossible. The power source is grace. It's the real, tangible, divine assistance that flows into our lives to help us become something more than we could ever be on our own. It's not just a nice concept. It's the actual energy that turns the circle into a spiral. It's the lift. And this distinction is everything. Grace is not opposed to effort. It is opposed to earning. Our effort, our work to correct and consecrate and repent, doesn't earn us this divine help. We can never earn it. What our effort does is open the door. Our work is what positions us to receive a power so much greater than our own. So we end here. This model, it's more than a theory. It's a practical map for life, for building love, for leaving a legacy. It gives us a way to understand ourselves, to turn our biggest challenges into our greatest strengths. And it leaves us with this incredible question. With a clear map like this, and with a divine guide to power the journey, what could you create? What could we create together?